I should have stayed home that night. That thought played in my mind as I pulled my hood tighter and walked faster through the cold, wet streets. The rain wasn't heavy, but it wouldn't stop. Small puddles covered the sidewalks, shining under the streetlights like tiny mirrors. I could have taken a cab, but I didn't. Something inside me said, "Walk tonight. You need this." I didn't know why, but I listened. It was a long day at work. I was tired, and my bag felt heavier with every step. The train station was still 10 minutes away, and all I wanted was to be home, warm and dry. As I walked through the park, the world felt quieter. The rain muffled every sound, and there were no people around. Just me, the rain, and the soft glow of the lamps. Then I saw her. She was sitting on a bench, alone. A young woman, maybe in her 20s. Her hair was soaked, her clothes stuck to her skin, and her shoulders were shaking. At first, I thought she was cold, but then I realized she was crying. I stopped walking. For a moment, I hesitated. "It's not your business," I told myself. "You're tired. Just go home." But I couldn't. Something about her felt wrong. I took a deep breath and stepped closer. "Excuse me," I said, my voice soft but clear. "Are you okay?" She didn't look up. Her hands covered her face, and her body trembled. "Do you need help?" I asked again. This time, she lowered her hands slightly. Her face was red and wet, not just from the rain. She looked at me, her eyes wide with fear and sadness, but she didn't say a word. I glanced around. The park was empty, just the two of us. The rain kept falling, making everything colder, darker. I tried again, this time slower. "Are you okay?" Finally, she spoke, her voice weak and broken. I don't know." Her words hit me like a wave. I didn't know what to say, but I knew I couldn't leave her there, alone in the rain. The rain continued to fall as I waited for her to say something more. She looked at me again, her face pale and her lips trembling. Then she whispered, "I'm fine. Just go away." She shook her head, covering her face with her hands again. I don't know." I knelt beside the bench, ignoring the cold rain soaking through my jeans. "Listen, I want to help." "What's wrong?" For a moment, she didn't answer. Then, without looking at me, she said, "I lost it." Her voice cracked, and she started crying again. "Lost what?" I asked gently. She sniffled and wiped her face with her wet sleeve. My bag." "Your bag?" I repeated, trying to understand. She nodded. "Yes. My bag, my backpack. It's gone." I frowned. Losing a backpack didn't seem like a reason to sit in the rain, crying. But then she added, it had everything. Money. Photo. Letter. Her voice broke again at the last word, and she looked like she might collapse under the weight of her sadness. I tried to think of the right words to say. "Okay," I began, speaking slowly, "your bag is missing. Where did you lose it?" She bit her lip, looking confused. I don't know. Maybe at the cafe?" "The cafe?" I repeated. "Which one?" She hesitated, her eyes darting around the park. "I don't know the name," she said, her English shaky but understandable. "Big windows. Red chairs." I nodded, trying to picture the place. Do you remember what street? She shook her head, tears forming in her eyes again. I don't know. I was walking. And then, it was gone. Her words were short and scattered, but I started to piece the story together. She must have been at a cafe and left her backpack behind, or maybe someone took it while she wasn't looking. Okay, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. We'll figure it out. What's in the bag? Why is it so important? She hesitated again, her hands gripping the edge of the bench. It has my money, she said slowly. All my money. And a photo. A photo? I asked, leaning closer. She nodded, her voice trembling. Of my mom. Only one. And a letter. Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. I didn't know the full story yet, but it was clear this bag wasn't just about money. It was about something deeper, something irreplaceable. I felt a pang of sympathy. Losing a bag was one thing, but losing a piece of your past? That was different. Okay, I said again, standing up. We'll find it. Let's start with the cafe. She looked at me, her wet face full of doubt and hope all at once. You help me? Yes, I said firmly. Let's go. The rain hadn't stopped, but it didn't matter. We walked quickly through the empty streets, my mind racing. The young woman, still quiet, stayed close to me. I glanced at her from time to time, wondering what her story really was. After a few wrong turns, we finally reached the cafe she described, big windows, red chairs, and a warm light glowing inside. It was nearly empty, except for a tired-looking barista wiping down tables and a couple sitting in the corner. I pushed the door open, and the bell above jingled softly. The girl hesitated at the entrance, her wet shoes squeaking against the tiled floor. Excuse me, I said to the barista, walking up to the counter. Did someone leave a bag here earlier? A backpack? The barista, a young man with messy hair, looked up and frowned. What color? I turned to the girl, and she whispered, black. A black backpack, I repeated. The barista nodded slowly. Yeah. Someone left one earlier, but he hesitated, glancing toward the back of the cafe. But what? I pressed, feeling the girl step closer behind me. A guy came in and said it was his, the barista explained. He took it. The girl gasped softly, her hands flying to her face. No, she whispered, her voice breaking. Wait, I said, trying to stay calm. Are you sure it was his? Did he describe it? The barista shrugged. Not really. He just said, that's mine, and grabbed it. I didn't think much of it. I felt a wave of frustration but forced myself to stay composed. Do you remember what he looked like? Maybe mid-30s? Dark jacket, messy hair. He seemed in a hurry. I turned to the girl, who was now shaking again. Her eyes filled with tears as she whispered, it's gone. Everything, gone. No, it's not, I said firmly, trying to stop her panic. We'll find it. Do you remember what was inside? Anything else? She wiped her face with her sleeve, struggling to speak. Photo, my mom, she said between sobs. She's gone. Only one photo. I froze for a moment. Your mom? I asked gently. She nodded, her tears falling freely now. She died. When I was little. The photo is all I have. Her words hit me hard, and I felt a deep pang in my chest. I thought of my own mother, her laugh, her voice. I couldn't imagine losing her, let alone having only one photo to hold on to. "Hey," I said softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We're going to find it. I promise." The determination in my voice surprised even me. I didn't know why I felt so strongly about helping this girl, but I did. Something about her loss felt too close, too personal. We left the cafe and started walking back the way we came. The streets were darker now, and the rain seemed colder. As we passed through an alley, something caught her eye. She grabbed my arm and whispered, "There. That's mine." I looked ahead and saw a man standing by the corner, holding a black backpack. He was tall, with a dark jacket and messy hair, just like the barista described. "That's mine," she cried, her voice loud and desperate. The man turned, his eyes narrowing as he saw us. For a second, he froze. Then he clutched the bag tighter and started walking away quickly. "Wait!" I shouted, running after him. The girl followed close behind, her shoes splashing through the puddles. The man glanced over his shoulder, his pace quickening. "Stop!" I yelled again, my heart pounding. "That's not yours." He didn't stop. Instead, he darted into another alley, disappearing into the shadows. I stood frozen at the edge of the alley, my breath visible in the cold, damp air. The rain was relentless, soaking through my coat, but I couldn't think about that now. The young woman beside me was trembling, her eyes locked on the dark figure moving further into the shadows. "Stay here," I said firmly. She hesitated but nodded, hugging herself for warmth. I stepped into the alley, my footsteps splashing in shallow puddles. "Hey!" I called out, my voice echoing against the brick walls. "Wait! We just want to talk." The man slowed but didn't stop. His grip on the black backpack tightened as he glanced over his shoulder. "Please," I continued, my tone softer now. "It's important. That's her bag." Finally, he stopped. Slowly, he turned to face me. Under the dim light of a flickering street lamp, I could see him clearly, a man in his mid-30s, wearing a wet, dirty jacket and shoes that looked older than he was. His face was rough, tired, and weary. "What do you want?" he asked gruffly. I gestured to the bag. "That's not yours." "It belongs to her," I said, pointing to the girl standing nervously at the alley's entrance. He frowned, his hands gripping the straps. "I found it. On the street. It's mine now." "No, it's not," I said, stepping closer. My heart pounded, but I forced myself to stay calm. "There's something in that bag. Something important to her. Please, just let us check." He hesitated, his eyes narrowing as he looked at me. "Why should I? I need this." I understood his hesitation. He didn't look like someone who had much. Still, I couldn't let him walk away. "Look, we don't want your money. We just need to see what's inside." After a long pause, he sighed. "Fine. But make it quick." He crouched down and opened the bag slowly, his movements careful, almost defensive. Inside were a few pieces of old clothing, a small bundle of cash, and a crumpled plastic bag. The girl rushed forward, her eyes scanning the contents desperately. "No, no, no, no," she cried, her voice cracking. "It's not here. Where is it?" The man stood up, looking confused. "What are you talking about?" "There was a photo," I explained quickly, trying to hold back my own frustration. And a letter. Did you see them? The man shook his head. No photo. No letter. Just this. He gestured to the bag's contents. The girl collapsed to her knees, her sobs echoing in the empty alley. It's gone, she whispered, her voice filled with despair. It's all gone. I knelt beside her, unsure of what to say. My chest tightened as I watched her cry, her small frame shaking in the cold rain. It's not over, I said softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. We'll find it. The man looked down at us, his expression shifting from defensive to guilty. I didn't mean to take anything important, he mumbled. I just needed a bag. I nodded. It's okay. Just go. He picked up the bag and walked away, his steps slow, almost reluctant. I looked around the alley, trying to think. The rain blurred my vision, but I forced myself to focus. There had to be something, anything, that could help Dot. Then I saw it. A small trash can stood in the corner, half filled with wet paper and empty bottles. Something about it caught my attention. Wait here, I said to the girl, standing up. Dot. I walked over to the trash can and started digging through the mess. My hands were cold and shaky, but I didn't stop. After a minute, I saw it, a small box, damp but intact. Is this yours? I asked, holding it up. Dot. The girl's eyes widened as she scrambled to her feet. Yes, she cried, running toward me. Dot. I handed her the box, and she opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a faded photograph of a smiling woman and a folded piece of paper. She clutched the photo tightly, her tears falling again, but this time they weren't from despair. That's her, she whispered. That's my mom. The young woman held the photo tightly, her fingers trembling as the rain softened into a drizzle. For the first time, a small, fragile smile appeared on her face. She stared at the picture, her wet hair sticking to her cheeks, and whispered, "This is my mom. She was my everything." Her voice was shaky but full of emotion, and I could feel the weight of her words. I knelt beside her, taking a closer look at the photograph. The woman in the picture had a kind, gentle smile and warm eyes that seemed to radiate love. As the girl turned the photo in her hands, something on the back caught my attention. "Wait," I said softly. "There's something written here." She froze, her eyes widening. "Written?" I nodded. "Yes, on the back." She turned the photo over, and there it was, faint, but still readable. A short message written in neat, careful handwriting. Dot. The girl's lips parted, and her voice came out in a whisper, barely audible. I never read this before. Can you read it for me?" I swallowed hard, suddenly feeling the weight of the moment. I took the photo gently from her hands and leaned closer to the text. My voice shook as I began to read. "Be brave. The world is not as scary as it seems. Kindness is your strength. Share it, and it will come back to you." The words hung in the air, quiet but powerful. My throat tightened, and I felt tears sting the corners of my eyes. I didn't know this woman, but her message was so simple, so pure. It wasn't just meant for her daughter, it felt like it was meant for anyone who read it. The girl wiped her tears, her expression softening as she looked at the photo. "She wrote this, for me?" I nodded, my voice catching. "Yes. And it's beautiful." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The rain had nearly stopped, leaving only the soft sound of water dripping from the rooftops. As I sat there beside her, I felt something shift inside me. Those words on the photo, meant for this girl, had also found a way into my own heart. I thought about how I had almost walked past her in the park, how I had almost ignored her pain. I thought about the times in my life when I had felt alone, scared, and unsure of what to do next. Kindness is your strength, I repeated to myself. Those words were true, not just for her, but for me too. The girl turned to me, her eyes still red but filled with a new sense of hope. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady now. "I will never forget this day. Never." Her words hit me like a wave. I smiled, feeling my own tears start to fall. "You're welcome," I said. "And I'm glad I could help." We sat there a little longer, both of us holding on to the moment. The streets were quiet, the rain finally gone, and the world felt different. Lighter, somehow. As we stood up to leave, the girl hugged the photo close to her chest. Her steps were slow but steady, like she had found her footing again. Before we parted ways, she turned to me one last time. "You saved me tonight," she said simply. I shook my head, smiling. Maybe we saved each other. That night, as I walked home, I thought about everything that had happened. I had left work tired and cold, expecting nothing more than a quiet night alone. But life had other plans. Sometimes, helping someone else is all it takes to remind us of what really matters. A small act of kindness, a single moment of connection, it can change a life. Maybe even two. As I unlocked my door and stepped inside, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. Be brave, I whispered to myself. Kindness will always come back to you. Open question. Why do you think the narrator decided to help the girl? Write your answer in the comments. Poll. Do you believe everything happens for a reason? Yes or no? Did you like this story? Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to learn English with stories in a fun and easy way. Here, you will find content perfect for anyone who wants to improve their English and practice the language. Join us on this journey of English for beginners.